Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, September 21st, 2020. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of the City of Asbury Park. Barbara, will you please call us to order?
Meeting coming to order for Monday, September 21st. All right, the following meeting is being conducted by electronic means in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, amended on 2020, which explicitly permits a public body to conduct meetings electronically during a state of emergency. Adequate notice of the meeting has been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press. All notices are on file with the Board Secretary.
I think we lost Barbara again. Jack, is it okay if I read the rest of the sunshine? Sure. In addition, okay, sorry everyone. In addition, a notice regarding this virtual meeting and instructions were published in the Asbury Park Press and the City of Asbury Park website. A copy of that notice is on file with the Board Secretary. The notices and the conduct of this meeting are in accordance with the guidelines for virtual meetings issued by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And just a few notes. Everyone please mute your microphones unless you're speaking so we can avoid some background noise. All public attendees' microphones are muted until the public question and/or comment period. Then we will call upon you once you raise your hand. In order to raise your hand, you must dial *9 on your telephone keypad or click on the raise hand button on your computer screen. Once we see that your hand is raised, we'll call upon you by either name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. Then we will unmute your microphone. If you have any technical difficulties and we cannot hear you, please use an alternate mean of calling in to the meeting, such as using the phone number provided. Okay, and one last note, all public attendees will have a total of 3 minutes for public comment. After the 3 minutes, your microphone will be muted. During the public question period, if your questions are found to be outside the scope of the testimony, you will be asked to, stop, and/or you will be muted. We will make an announcement that you have been muted. Okay. And while we're waiting for Barbara to get back, shall we do the salute?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we'll just give it a few more minutes. Hopefully Barbara will come back. Actually, I can take roll now if that's okay.
Sure.
Mayor John Moore.
Here.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton.
Here.
Michael Manzella.
Here.
Alexis Taylor.
Who was here?
She's here. Alexis Taylor.
Here? Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, here.
Trudy Syfax is absent. Jennifer Souter.
Here.
Jim Henry.
Here.
Eric Galapo.
Here.
Rick Lambert is absent this evening. And Barbara Krizak is here. As soon as we get her back, I will ask her.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, can I, we have two resolutions. The first one is the approval of the resolution for AP Triangle subdivision. Does anyone have any modifications that they would like to or make or are concerned about? Okay, if not, can I get a motion for the approval of the resolution for the AP Triangle subdivision?
So moved. Mike Manzella.
Second, Yvonne Clayton.
Thank you. And that resolution has been marked into into exhibit as exhibit B001 on the screen in front of you. And I have a motion by Michael Manzella, a second by Yvonne Clayton, Trudy Syfax, Jim Henry, and Eric Galapo and Barbara Krizak are not eligible to vote on this resolution. Everyone else who is eligible in favor, say aye.
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 Irina, we only have three. Why don't we call the names?
Okay, sorry.
That's
So
all
I
right.
have Mayor John Moore.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton,
Yes.
Michael Manzella,
Yes.
Alexis Taylor,
Yes.
Jennifer Sauter,
Yes.
and Rick Lambert is not here. So thank you. That's everyone.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
resolution memorialized.
All right, the next resolution is for the approval of the resolution for the AP Triangle site plan. Does anybody have any modifications that they feel that they have not verbalized? Okay, if not, can I get a motion to approve the resolution for the AP Triangle site plan?
So moved. Mike Manzella again.
Second, Yvonne Clayton.
Thank you. And I'm just going to take the roll again. So it's easier. Mayor John Moore,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton,
Yes.
Michael Manzella,
Yes.
Alexis Taylor,
Yes.
I think that's it.
That's
and that's it. Rick's not here.
Right.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Resolution memorialized.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, we have an application that for 503 8th Avenue LLC. They have requested to adjourn to the next meeting on November 2nd, 2020. Can I get a motion to,
If I may.
yes,
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. Madam Chairwoman, I've reviewed the notices with Irina in great detail today. They were in proper form, so the board does have jurisdiction to hear this matter.
is this the one for 8th Avenue, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, so then can I get a motion for it to move to the next meeting without notice?
Jim Henry, so moved.
Motion. Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion by Jim Henry.
Seconded.
And a second.
Seconded by Alexis Taylor.
Thank you. And a second by Alexis Taylor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Application carried to November 2nd, 2020 without further notice.
We have, if I may, Irina, I think I saw an email from Kevin that in addition to the request, he said that he would extend any time necessary. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the application that we have before us today is for 202 to 204 7th Avenue, block 4201, lot 3 and 4. All right, let's get started.
Okay, Madam Chairwoman, I've reviewed those notices in great detail with Irina today, and they are in proper form as well, so the board has jurisdiction to proceed with that application this evening.
Excellent.
I'm sorry to interrupt everyone, but Jennifer Smith has raised her hand.
Right.
So one moment, let's see what she has to say. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hi, can everyone hear me? This is Jennifer Phillips Smith.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to put on the record on behalf of Asbury Partners LLC before this application began that there's a bit of a technical issue that hasn't been handled yet, but I believe that the applicant will be handling it this week. The applicant went through the subsequent developer process in order to be named as subsequent developer for this property. And they had their subsequent development agreement approved by the city. However, to my knowledge, it hasn't actually been executed yet. So they haven't completed the final step of being fully designated as the subsequent developer. In talking with the applicant, I believe this is just an oversight, and we ask that the agreement that was approved by the city be executed this week by all the parties so that we can clean up this technical issue. Although I believe the board probably should wait or could wait for this agreement to be signed. Being that it got to this point, we don't want to hold anyone up, especially since the applicant has assured us that they will take care of executing the agreement this week. So we wanted to make sure we just put that on the record.
Jack, would there be an issue with making it a condition of approval if it were to come to a vote tonight?
Right. That's exactly what I would recommend. Normally, in the future, we won't hear these applications until the subsequent developer agreement has been executed. But we're here, no problem. We can make everything contingent upon execution of the outstanding agreement. And we would ask Mr. Kennedy to make a representation on the record that what the representations made by Ms. Smith are correct and that the agreement that has been circulated will be executed this week.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, good evening, Kevin Kennedy on behalf of the applicant. I did speak with Ms. Smith tonight. She was good enough and professional to call me. This is just an oversight. It has been executed by most of the parties. We will definitely execute it this week. And thank you, and sorry for that inconvenience.
Okay.
All right, that is all. And thank you for allowing me to interject at the beginning just to make sure we had the record cleaned up.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Kevin, before you swear in your first witness, I'd like to have Jason and Donna sworn in, which is customary in these type of cases.
Sure.
Jason, Donna, please raise your right hands. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And Donna does as well. Thank you. Please state your names and your affiliation with the board.
Donna Miller, board planner.
Thank you.
Jason Fitch, the board engineer.
Thank you. Okay. I'll be quiet now.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, ladies and gentlemen of the board and board professionals. My name is Kevin Kennedy. I'm an attorney with an office in Red Bank, and I'm very pleased and honored and excited to be before you tonight with respect to this application dealing with the 202, 204 7th Avenue Asbury properties. It's block 201, lots 3 and 4. At the heart of this application is my client's request to effectuate the following: A, demolition of an existing structure, and B, construction of a brand new building containing 14 residential condominium units. As you are aware, the property is located in the city's waterfront redevelopment area, and as such, we are subject to a number of waterfront redevelopment regulations. Additionally, as I understand it, we are, I believe, the second venture under the city's recently amended redevelopment plan, whereby some redevelopment projects can conditionally be transferred from the master redeveloper to a subsequent developer on a lot-by-lot basis. This is our role tonight, and we are here officially and respectfully as a designated subsequent developer. As part of, just real briefly, as part of the city's subsequent developer process, we have already successfully satisfied some preliminary procedural steps to get to this point tonight. Clearly, appearing before you all tonight is a very big hurdle and a very important hurdle for this project, and we are glad to be here. By way of very, very brief review, for the record, let me just take 2 minutes to advise as to some of the procedural preliminary stages we have already undertaken so that we can jurisdictionally stand before you tonight. As indicated, the city has adopted a very elaborate and procedurally detailed process whereby a subsequent developer can receive permission to develop an individual lot. The master waterfront redeveloper or agents thereof officially consented to or otherwise conditionally approved my client's ability to submit, process, and pursue approval of this project. The applicant's representatives thereafter submitted a subsequent developer application, forms, and fees. The applicant was ultimately cleared to go to the next level. The applicant's representatives thereafter appeared, I believe we appeared 2 times before a technical review committee, which was not necessarily or actually a planning board TRC, but was something very similar. We met with a large TRC group, and it was lawyers, engineers, planners, architects, some municipal officials, and the like. I believe we met on September 16th, 2019, and November 17th, 2019. We had a tremendously successful exchange with the TRC. We conceptually explained the project, we answered some questions, we considered other suggestions, and we made modifications to the plan based upon some really good suggestions by TRC members. Thereafter, the applicant's development team preliminarily appeared before the City Council at a workshop meeting, and we basically explained the project and displayed some of the renderings. And thereafter, with the city's consent, we then proceeded to the next phase. We have had a number of formal and/or informal meetings with city redevelopment officials regarding the project. And tonight, we are keeping the process and the procedure moving forward. Clearly, as indicated, we will sign that subsequent developers agreement this week. In any event, after a lot of hard work and cooperation from all involved, the city ultimately designated 202 7th Avenue as the subsequent developer for the property. And that designation as subsequent developer is essentially our ticket to be able to submit a planning board application and appear before you tonight. Though there has been a lot of reviews and discussions on the matter, the site plan aspect of the project is left for you all, for your review and hopeful approval tonight. Tonight, like any other site plan application, it is my hope that our team will successfully present the details to you, present our overall vision of the project, landscaping details, engineering details, and all the things that you will need. Our proposal is very exciting, and we're very excited about it. Mr. Chairman, or Madam Chairman, just for the record, I anticipate having 3 witnesses tonight. William Stocky, who is a representative of the subsequent developer. Also, we're going to have Richard Asbury, our architect. And third and final witness will be Walter Hopkin, he will be testifying as both an engineer and any planner. And Madam Chair, with that having been said, with your consent, I'd like to turn it over to Bill Stocky. Bill Stocky, seated to my left, is a representative of the company. He has been involved in all aspects of this development from day one. He knows everything about the project. And I want him, with your consent, to share his vision and excitement about this project, because there clearly is a lot of vision and there clearly is a lot of excitement. So, Mr. Attorney and Madam Chair, with your consent, I'd like to turn it over to Bill Stocky to have him sworn.
Bill, please raise your right hand. Excuse me. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record, spell it, and give us your affiliation with the applicant.
My name is William W. Stuckey, WILLIAMWSTUCKEY, and I am the manager of this project for 202 7th Avenue, LLC.
Okay.
First of all, it's nice to be here and appreciate all the hard work Irina has put into making this happen. It is a challenge to do this electronically. Much prefer to be standing before the board, which I've done 5 or 6 times in the last 4 years. But anyway, here we are, and I'm excited to be here. So this project has been in the making now for about 18 months. Pat and I, once it became clear that after many years that the WRA guidelines or entity was going to, in the city, were going to allow spot lot development, Pat and I talked about building a building here, which is a block from the beach on 7th Avenue and 1 building in from Kingsley. One of the first things we did, Pat and I sat and sort of brainstormed about what we wanted to do. And there were 2 overriding design guidelines that we focused on. One, we wanted to have a building that sort of was modern and beachy in feel. And the second thing that we really wanted to do, which which we felt even more important, was that there would be outdoor living space. I assume that all of you have seen the plans and see that there are decks that are about 400 or 500 square feet on floors 2, 3, and 4 for each of those units, and then like 1,200 square foot outdoor decks for the penthouses on the top floor. We felt this was important so that people could put a table out there and chairs or chase lounge chairs, eat breakfast, dinner, lunch, you know, have a place outside. And many of these units will have views down the corridor towards the ocean. We then embarked, or I did, I think our engineer, Walt Hopkin, actually recommended Sonnenfeld and Trocchia, the architects, which I ultimately decided to hire. And I sat with them, Rich and Andy Trocchia, who's also here tonight listening into this meeting, and explained to them what we wanted to accomplish. Rich is the designer here, and we know he created units that are saleable. I have had 5 meetings with people that heard about the project, came into the office, and expressed an interest in buying these unique units with good parking arrangements on the first floor and the rooftop deck, which we'll talk about later. So once, it took several months to get through the design process, and then there were administrative things that I had to do to submit to become a subsequent developer, and we were approved by iStar in the city very quickly. The project came before the TRC last September, as Kevin mentioned, and it was a really dynamic meeting, that first meeting with them. I think Kevin was there, Rich and I. I'm not going to go into, bore you with all that got discussed there, but I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes. Michael Sullivan was there, and I think Donna was that night too. And Yvonne Clayton and Barbara said that the building, as we had designed it, didn't quote unquote interact with the street. And they explained what that meant to me, because it was going to be up to me to figure out how to redesign the building with Rich. So the entrance had been on the left side of the building, going into the stairwell and elevator bank. And during this meeting, I came up with a solution to create a lobby off of 7th Avenue. And we also discussed the need for a room for storage for either bicycles or beach chairs or boogie boards or even a surfboard or 2. And so we left that first meeting, and we said we'd be back, and we were 45 days later. But what happened in that 45-day period, Rich immediately, I met with him, and he's great at sketching out things. So we put the lobby off of 7th Ave with the vestibule, and it's going to be a beautiful lobby. We created the bike or the storage room, and we rearranged our parking. I think we lost a couple of parking spaces, but it really doesn't affect the marketability of the building. Then I went down to Trenton and met with Michael Sullivan and went through the changes that we had made. And Michael and I talked for a couple of hours, and we made some changes to the exterior finishes of the building. In November of 2019, we went back to the TRC. And before I talk about that meeting, I want to say, you know, you have these committees, and out of this first TRC meeting, the building became better based on those comments, which I don't think a lot of developers necessarily say that, but it was a good thing. So I came back with Kevin and Rich. I think we were there for all of 10 or 15 minutes, and everyone liked the changes, made the building better, and I think everyone was in agreement this was ready to go to the planning board. So that's about all I have to say. I've reviewed the comment letters from Insight and Clark Hayden-Kins and talked to my professionals. There's a lot of minutia that we may have to go into tonight, which is okay, and Rich and Walt are ready to do that. But I think the question ultimately that I'd like you all to consider, is this a good looking building? And do you think it belongs in the WRA? And I know the TRC felt that way. Pat and I feel that way, as does Sonnenfeld and Tropia. So without further ado, Rich is going to go through his presentation.
Should I go right to?
No,
Okay.
no, questions from the board and then cross-examination by members of the public.
Anybody from the board have any concerns or any questions?
So, if I may, I wrote down a couple things while you were speaking. Thank you for your presentation. This is Eric Galapo, board member. I just wanted to understand, like you stated, and you can just confirm if I'm on the right track here, that your two goals were to create a modern and beachy aesthetic and a building that had outdoor living space.
Correct.
Okay, so those are your two goals. Is that correct?
They were the overriding things that we felt needed to drive the project. Yes.
Okay. I also heard you talk a lot about marketability or sellability of these units, and could you just discuss some of the factors that you considered when you approached that as a driver of this project?
We felt that the units needed to have 2 bedrooms and some interesting living space. And I think if you look at the floor plans, they just aren't rooms that are rectangles or squares bunched together. I think when you walk in the doors of these units, which as they're being built, I hope you'll feel free to do, that it creates an interesting dynamic. And Eric, I am not an architect. Rich will talk more about this if you'd like him to.
I just want to make sure that we review just how you determine sellability. Or what factors were included in your calculus around marketability?
We are going to be at a price point that we think is attractive. One of the things that I had to go through was doing a detailed cost analysis with an outside consultant, which was a good exercise because we needed to know what it was going to cost to build this building. Of course, we had a pretty good idea, but we know. So we wanted to bring units to market that we're at a price point in the 600s to maybe low 700s that would sell relatively quickly. And we thought that, being in Asbury Park, which is a great town, and being a block from the ocean, that if we had an attractive price point, we could do this. And based on the meetings I've had with people that have found us, we're on the right track.
Okay, and then I want to just cover something else that you mentioned and that you want us to review. Is this a good-looking building? I'm just quoting you. And does it belong in the WRA?
Yeah, I think that's why we're here. And, I think that ultimately you'll have to ask yourself that. The TRC, we were happy, or I was pleased that we were able to redesign the first floor and have the TRC say we like this. So everyone has an opinion. I don't know, how that'll play out tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else on the board have any other questions? Anyone from the public? Can we open up public questions?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, just to remind everyone, if you want to ask a question, you must dial *9 on your telephone keypad or click on the raise hand button on your screen. So I only show one person with their hand raised. Mr. Mignoli, go ahead and ask your question. Okay.
Yeah, Ernest Mignoli, 400 Deal Lake Drive, Unit 5B, Asbury Park, New Jersey, and temporarily at 305 7th Avenue. I just had a question for the attorney. Not a question, but one to start. Can you please, like when you refer to people, I don't understand when you say first names. You kept referring, I considered it with Pat, and Pat and I did this, and, Joe and I did that, and then we went back to Pat and spoke to Joanne, and Joanne was the master developer, and then we went back to Pat.
I think we get the idea. Thank you, Mr. Mignoli.
So can you fill in all those names for me? Who's Pat?
Pat Pisano is the owner of the LLC, which will be building this building.
Okay. And in other words, it was I guess to question your legal definition, it's something that I guess a master redeveloper owned, and then another contractor somehow bought it from them. So I forget the legal term that you used. What is it that it becomes like a secondary developer?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. This LLC has owned this property for at least 10 years. We did not buy it from iStar, the master developer. And Jack Serpico can talk about how lot by lot development came into effect more intelligently than I can. That's the answer.
Okay. I thought that you said, I don't know if it's 10 years ago, that a secondary developer bought it, or whether it's 20 years ago. That's not my point. Somehow it was owned by a master developer who somehow gave it to a secondary developer, regardless of the amount of time. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that because I do not know exactly when Pat Pisano, through this LLC, bought the land. And I don't know from whom he bought it.
Is that customary, that when you represent a developer, you don't know the history of the
No, it's irrelevant.
property?
It's irrelevant.
Okay, I'll accept that. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of the things that you mentioned, you talked about rooftop penthouses and extra large, I guess, patios and things like that, and aesthetics, and that it's modernistic and that it's beachy, and it seems like I think you mentioned you'll start at around $700,000 a unit. There'll be 2 bedrooms. But the question is, when you're asking the aesthetic question, you're the attorney, I think.
No, he's just he's the project manager.
Oh, project manager. Okay. Oh, okay. So the gentleman who's speaking is the project manager for Pat Pisano LLC, whatever the name is. I know.
For the applicant.
For the applicant. Okay.
Yes.
Which somewhere in the background, I think he stated, is Mr. Pat Pisano. I guess he's a developer, a builder, I think, in Asbury. So, okay, I'm all clear on that. But the point is it your asking of the board, and I guess the public is listening, to make a determination as to the beauty and if it fits? Is that how it is?
Hi, good evening. My name is Kevin Kennedy. I'm the attorney for the applicant. The term that we're talking about is subsequent developer in accordance with the city's established ordinance. And we are here tonight seeking site plan approval. And what we hope to show to this board is that we comply with the site plan requirements of the city of Asbury Park. And obviously architecture, we're going to explain the architectural details of it. So I think if you would, if we proceed, and you'll hear from our architect, and you can have more information on the actual specific architectural details.
Okay, I'll do that. And I just want to thank you for the questions that you did answer, because now I'm a little bit more clear about where you are, how it came to be, what you want to do, why you're before the board. And I understand everything that you mentioned, and I appreciate those clarifications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Magnoli. Anyone else? I don't see any other hands raised, so we can go forward.
Okay, I'd like to call Rich Arsberger, our architect. And Rich, why don't we get you sworn in? If you could just, well, Mr. Serpico will ask you for your name and address.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record, spell it, and give us your affiliation with the applicant.
My name is Richard Arsberger, A-R-Z-B-E-R-G-E-R. I'm a principal architect with Sonnenfeld and Stocky Architects. We're located 53 Main Street, Holmdel, New Jersey. And I was primarily responsible for developing the architectural plans for the project.
And hey, Rich, you're talking testifying tonight in your capacity as a licensed architect, correct?
Yes, I've been a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 1984.
And your licenses and certifications are current and up to date?
Yes.
I want you to just give a brief history of college and.
Okay. I have a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Notre Dame. I have a Master's in Business from the University of Michigan. As I said, I've been a licensed architect in New Jersey since 1985, and I have testified before land use boards throughout the state of New Jersey, including many in Monmouth County, and been accepted as a witness in those.
Thank you. Mr. Serpico, Madam Chair, based upon that presentation, I would ask respectfully that the board accept Mr. Arsberger as a qualified professional witness.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Serpico, let me ask one quick question. Do you want me, or did you want to enter in at the back of the Clark Caton memo and the back of the engineering memo was a list of the exhibits. Do you want me to go through them individually as we speak, or however you want to do it? I'm willing to comply.
Well, you got to just address your variance and design exceptions, and to have.
You don't need me to mark anything into
Yeah, that would be your planner, but explain to the board how you believe the architecture fits in the parameters of the redevelopment agency and the waterfront redevelopment plan.
Thank you. Okay, so Rich, just as an architect, you're familiar with the application, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the site?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the plans which have been submitted?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you tell us about some of the architectural features?
Okay, what I'll do is I'll just give you a general overview first, and then we'll go through the submission sheet by sheet. I'll basically walk you through the building, and then finally, to close, I will address the specific comments that were found in the Clark Caton Hints letter of September 14th relating to architecture. So basically, as explained before, the proposal includes a 5-story, 14-unit multifamily building, which has a roof deck with parking garage at the first level.
You know what, Madam Chair, may we use the share screen button so we can present some of these architectural exhibits which have already been submitted, but just
yes, we would prefer for you to do that as you're speaking. Yes.
Okay, so Andy's going to be our control master here, Andy Trocchia.
Okay. I don't know what too big is. Can you see that on the screen right now?
No.
No.
Okay, Arena, do you have to give me a share screen?
It's on. While you're doing that, I'm just Are you bringing the architectural plans up first?
I was gonna try to, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna bring them up so that we can mark them into exhibit.
Thank you.
Sure.
Irina, can we get the rendering up, please?
You want the rendering up first?
Please. Please.
Sure. Okay, everyone see that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, and that's been marked into exhibit as exhibit A2.
Thank you. So, Rich, why don't you describe what the board members of the public are looking at?
I'll wait for it to generate. Okay, what you're currently looking at is a color rendering of the proposed building.
And excuse me, Irina, can you hear Rich okay?
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, this is the view from the street. And as you can see, the building is a 5-story, 14-unit, multifamily building, which has a roof deck at the uppermost level, as well as a parking garage at grade, which provides 23 parking spaces within the building. The 14 units in the building consist of 6 2-bedroom units containing 1,502 square feet, 6 2-bedroom units that contain 1,716 square feet, a single 2-bedroom unit with a den that contains 1,090 square feet, and 1 2-bedroom unit that contains 1,492 square feet. If you go to the garage plan next, I'll just basically go, that's the overview of the building. I'll go through the individual plans and elevations that are part of the submission.
Rich, do you want me to bring up the plans?
Yes, the sheet A1 to start with.
Okay, and these plans have been marked into exhibit as exhibit A1, dated 2/27/20. Sorry.
Irina, I think we're still looking at A2.
No, this is A1.
This is A1?
It's sheet A1, is that correct?
It's not being shared.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
In our submission, it's sheet A1 of our plans.
Sorry,
Exhibit for that.
it was on my screen, but not yours. Okay. All right, do you see that now?
That's it. Okay, exhibit A1. What you're looking at is the ground floor plan for the building. This is basically the parking garage level. As you can see in the lower left-hand corner of the building is the main entry lobby, which provides access to the elevator lobby and stairs. Behind the stairs is a bike storage room, which has access solely from the exterior.
Excuse me? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there any way that we could actually see what you're talking about? Where are you on the plan?
Can you see his hand?
Yes, I can see the hand, yes.
Okay, you see the cursor, right?
Yes.
Okay. As I said, the entry vestibule is at the front of the...
I'm sorry, Rich. This is my screen share. We're going to need Andy to use his screen share if he can, so that he can point things out as you're speaking.
Give us 1 second.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Can you see the plan?
Yes, can you zoom in, please?
Can you see the cursor looping
Yes.
around? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, it might have, can you move the no comment section, like close that just so we can see?
Please repeat that.
We can see it, yeah.
Okay. As I was saying, in the lower left-hand corner, the main entry vestibule provides access to the mail and package room as well as the main entry lobby of the building. Beyond that, and the two support spaces, sprinkler and electric room, provides access to one of the two exit stairs as well as the elevator lobby. Behind the stair enclosure itself is a room which is labeled bike garage, which is accessed solely from the exterior. That's storage for resident bicycles. Going to the front of the building again, you'll see there's a driveway with a garage door located, and to its right is a refuse recycling area, which is accessed from both inside the garage as well as to that driveway space. So the garage door, 18 feet wide approximately, provides access to the parking garage itself. And as you can see, there are 23 spaces, 8 spaces which are tandem. So those 23, you see 4 and 4, and the rest are standard parking spaces. 1 handicap space is provided. To the right side of that is the second exit stair, which exits directly to the exterior. Okay. On the next sheet are the first and second floor plans. On your left-hand side, can you scroll down a little bit? Just so I can see the light. Yeah. Second, on the left-hand side is the second, third, and fourth floor plan. On the right-hand side is the penthouse. So that represents each of the respective 4 residential levels of the building. As you can see, on the left-hand side, the building is basically divided up into 4 segments with an entry corridor accessing both the elevator and the 2 stairwells. And each of the units is accessed from the middle of that central corridor area. So each unit has exposure on 2 sides. In the case of the front units which face the street, it's the front view as well as either side view. And on the rear 2 units, you have a view to the rear as well as the side as well. And you can see labeled as terrace the areas which were referred to by Mr. Stocky's testimony as outdoor areas for indoor-outdoor use for the residents. Each of the units contains the equivalent of 2 master bedroom suites, as you can see. That's the case with every one of these, as well as the 2 bedrooms, and a fairly large kitchen, living, dining area, the purpose of which was to provide an open floor plan for entertaining and to meet the current market demands for amenities and floor plan layout. As you can see, the bedrooms are each well sized, as well as the living area itself. And the rear units, as you can see, there are 2 bathrooms, as well as the front having 2 bathrooms, island kitchen, and so on. Our main goal was to provide as much exposure to the views as possible. As you can see, particularly in the case of the front units, we're taking an angle view from within the units to provide that view. So the first 3 residential floors are what you see as far as this plan goes. The building is basically a mirror image on either side that runs front to back. The top floor, which we label the penthouse floor, is next to that. And in this case, what we were proposing to do is provide larger luxury units, true penthouse type units, in which the living area and is larger than the units below, basically creating a premium unit, which would have, in addition to the 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, a half bath as well as a den and a very large great room area for living and an expanded island kitchen area. As you can see, the terrace wraps around each of these units. This is the front unit. If you see that half the building is basically the front unit. And then on the other side of the corridor is the rear unit, which is slightly smaller than the front, but it also has many of the same components as the front unit. That has a double master suite, half bath, as well as the enlarged living area and kitchen. So these are and a very large den. So as you can see, these are premium luxury units which are located on the top floor of the building. As I said, that stair and elevator goes up. Both stairs and elevator go all the way up to the roof, which you'll see on the next sheet. Now this is, what sheet number is this? This is what, A4? Yeah, sheet A3 of the submission. And as you can see, the stairwell and elevator go up to provide access to the rooftop deck. The usable deck area is primarily to the front side of those two elements. Between the two elements, we've located a kitchenette to provide service to the upper level rooftop recreation area. And the recreation area provides for passive entertainment. We've also provided a grill and so on. So you'll also notice that there are a number of HVAC units, which are condensing units, that are located in an enclosure to the front of adjacent to the stairs. And we also have some additional condensing units that are located on the rooftop to the back. Now, the roof area is basically just primarily for those two mechanical equipment. It's no access for resident uses provided. It's just mainly for maintenance purposes. As you can see, there's a door that goes from that kitchenette area to provide rooftop access. And that's basically the way the building lays out in terms of plan. Next, I'll go over the elevations. Next sheet. Next sheet is sheet A4 in our submission. And the top elevation illustrates what the front elevation of the building, which is what you would see from the street. And as you can see, the building height is proposed to be 60 feet. And the primary materials used throughout the building for cladding materials is fiber cement board product. Various types, textures, and colors, but the entire facade treatment is done in fiber cement cladding, and that's described in detail on the elevation. You'll notice that at grade level, the access to the garage is by way of an aluminum and glass garage door, which I'll address specifically in the comments for the Clark Caton Hints memo. Likewise, the guardrails for the individual decks are composed of glass and metal. I'll also go into some detail on that. And the windows are a combination of fixed and casement windows. There's also some windows that are located in the refuse area, as well as the parking garage and entry vestibule to give more interest at the street level. The next elevation is the rear elevation. And as you can see, the treatment that you see from the front was carried around to the rear of the building as well. Same materials and color, same railings and window treatment. So the character of the building is reflected on all four sides, and there's no differentiation between the front and rear elevations. The next sheet shows the left side elevation, and here you can see the transition from front to rear along the sides of the building. The building, this wall has a setback of 10 feet from the property line. And as you can see, there are a number of windows. The individual unit terraces wrap around for side exposure, as well as the penthouse level as well. The penthouse level, whereas you have a solid parapet on the front elevation, transitions to the metal guardrail, or metal and cable railing on the side elevation. And then the right side elevation shown here, which is pretty much a mirror, virtually a mirror image of the other side. You'll also notice that each side elevation locates 4 condensing units at grade in addition to the condensing units which were shown at the rooftop. And I think as far as the architectural drawings, that completes our submission as far as the architectural drawings go. The next thing I'd like to address would be the comments from the planner's letter, Clark Kate and Hintz letter, which was dated September 14th. And in that letter, specific testimony was requested with respect to waivers that we will be seeking for the application. And I'm going to go through a number of the waivers which are required in terms of architectural waivers. I think Mr. Stocky plans on testifying to a few of these elements that were more owner-oriented, but I'll go through the architectural ones. So the first architectural point was in the letter on page 6, item C2, which deals with the garage door. And you can see from the elevation, the garage door is shown as a combination of aluminum frame and infill of glass, whereas in the guidelines require that the doors shall be painted wood or composite wood, which differs from what we're proposing. Our intent with specifying and designing the glass and metal garage door was to give the appearance of just another window. We propose to use frosted glass to obscure the view into the parking garage, but the idea was to add a little bit more interest at grade level and kind of mimic the look of the windows. Rather than doing a solid painted garage slab door, we believe this is an improvement over that. And it's also in keeping with the style of the building as well. So we're requesting a waiver specifically for the use of that type of garage door as opposed to the required solid wood. Item number 3 deals with the size of that garage door. The guidelines propose, I believe, a maximum width of 9 feet wide. This garage door is proposed at 18 feet wide. And the reason for that is, rather than being just a simple one-car garage, this garage provides access to 23 vehicles. And it's our opinion that there on occasion, would require vehicles that would be exiting and entering possibly at the same time. An 18-foot width gives us the ability to do that. So 2 cars could bypass one another, thereby creating any issues with traffic on the street, as well as a difficulty in exiting the building. So that was the logic behind the 18-foot wide garage door, and why we're seeking a waiver rather than conforming with a maximum 9-foot wide garage door. Item number 5 deals with the masonry or metal parapets, which are required under the guidelines. The guidelines require that a 42-inch railing height reproportioned by a separation of grill and handrail or some other such method. What we're proposing to use there is a glass guardrail, as you can see illustrated. It's a safety glass guardrail that basically is held in place by metal posts and rail. The idea here was to provide maximum ability, transparency, so there's nothing obstructing the view to the exterior, either from the outdoor terrace or even from the interior of the units itself, particularly from the primary living area. We believe this is still in keeping with the overall design theme of the building, and therefore are seeking a waiver from the requirement. Item number 6, windowsills shall be provided and lintels may be shown, but the windowsill should slightly overlap the width of the window opening without projecting more than 2 inches. The building's window design does not provide windowsills. In this particular case, we're looking for a clean look without windowsills. As you can see, there is no extension along the bottom part of the window. It's more in keeping with the contemporary expression that we're seeking here. So we're seeking a waiver from the specific requirement of providing a window sill. Item number 8 deals with the windows themselves. The guidelines recommend single, double, triple, single, double, or triple hung or operable casements. Openings may be rectangular with vertical or square proportion. Multiple windows in the same row of opening shall be separated by a 4-inch minimum post. The center line of the window sash shall align with the center line of the wall. There shall be no flush-mounted windows, and proposed buildings windows and the comment is that the proposed buildings windows are flush-mounted and include multiple windows in the same rough opening that are not separated by a 4-inch post. Additionally, it appears that many of the windows are non-operable fixed panes. And as indicated on the building elevations, which you saw previously, that is a true statement that some of these windows are casements, some of them are fixed, but we believe all of them are in keeping with the overall style that we were attempting to achieve in the design of the building. As far as the flush appearance goes, we're proposing just to use standard frame construction for these walls. So rather than a curtain wall type of construction, and a curtain wall construction, the windows are indeed flush with the outside surface of the cladding material. However, here, just as you would have in any other conventionally constructed building, there is an offset between the exterior surface of the siding and the window itself, just as you would have in any wood-sided building, brick-sided building, stone, or other cladding materials. We're not proposing a curtain wall type of construction where the windows are flush with the wall surface itself. And item number 9, the question comes up when it overlaps with the previous window discussion I just had, and basically it deals with the surfaces of the wall versus the surface of the window. And as I said in addressing item number 8, there is some offset, typical of what you would find in any building which is sided that has wood frame construction and sided with some kind of cladding material. I was also asked to comment on page 8 with respect to item 4.1, parking garage operation. And there are 4 items that are associated with that comment. The first is no wheel stops or other mechanisms are provided to prevent vehicles from contacting the building walls. We don't believe curb stops are necessary in this particular application because there's the parking that will be utilized under the building will be owned and used by the residents themselves. So unlike a commercial type of operation, the residents are familiar with the size of the parking spaces and familiar with how their cars would fit into that. So the need for a curb stop is unnecessary, in the parking garage. So we're not proposing that. No information was the second item. Item B was that no information has been provided on the manner in which tandem spaces would be used. The applicant should describe whether spaces are assigned and how this is to be determined. Additionally, the accessible space should not be assigned to a specific unit unless the occupants meet, the accessible space should not be assigned to a specific unit unless the occupants meet the criteria for use. As far as the tandem spaces go, they'd be used in much the same way one would use a single car garage and a driveway, and that the residents who own the tandem space would have to account for whose car shifts in first. The 2 tandem spaces would be designated to a single unit. So the occupants of that single unit would make those arrangements with respect to use of the tandem itself. And likewise, we agree that the accessible space should not be assigned to a specific unit unless the occupants meet the criteria. In other words, they are in need of a handicap space. Item C, the applicant should describe the operation of the garage door and or gate and indicate the time needed for the door to cycle in order to access potential backups on the street during peak times of use. The garage door will be operated by a key fob or remote control from the exterior and from a motion detector from the interior side. So a resident would basically hit the key fob. Many vehicles today, you can tune the remote control to the remote control in their vehicle, and that would make it even easier yet to operate. And likewise, the motion detector would sense any car exiting the parking garage. The time for this would be similar to the time you would expect for a sectional garage door in a single-family residence. I would estimate the operation time to be about 20 seconds. And then finally, the applicant's project narrative. This is item D under 4.1. The applicant's project narrative notes that the residents will have the ability to purchase a stacker. I'll allow Mr. Stocky to go into more detail on that and how that will be an option that he would possibly like to offer. On page 9 of the review letter, under item 4.4, there's a question with respect to lighting. And I would just like to say that in response to that item, the applicant has provided an updated lighting plan, which addresses the concerns that are indicated in that item. Some of the things, for example, the rooftop lighting, you'll note from that revised lighting plan that the light fixtures on the upper level roof deck are primarily wall fixtures, which are focused onto the walking surface of the rooftop deck itself, and there's no light spillage over the top of that. Likewise, there was a concern with lighting levels for neighboring properties. You'll also note that in that revised lighting plan, we've extended the designation for foot candle level beyond the lot line to reflect that at a worst case scenario, the light overflow onto either of the adjacent properties is a maximum of 0.5 foot candles. And I'd just like to remind you that a moonlit night has an ambient light level of 2 foot candles. So the light spillage is far less than what you would have as a result of a moonlit night. On page 10 of 13 of the review letter, there's a question with respect to solid waste and recycling. And this is private pickup. So the association can make arrangements for the frequency of pickup from that vendor. So depending on what the needs are in terms of storage, they can fine tune that to whatever their needs are. In a building such as this, I might expect that occupancy during different times of year may vary with respect to generation of refuse. So it would be logical that to have a flexible arrangement like that is possibly in the winter time, there wouldn't be as many residents staying here, so that there might be snowbirds, for example. So the need for more frequent pickups would be lessened, whereas if you have 100% occupancy, for example, in the summer, there may want to be more frequent pickups. As far as the space that's available, the space is approximately the size, slightly larger than a one-car garage, and we believe that that is sufficiently adequate to provide both refuse and recycling areas for the bins, which, as I said, would be accessed from the exterior by the private parlor through the exterior doors that are adjacent to the garage door. And I think that covers the architectural items on the review letter by Clark, Kate, and Hintz. I think Mr. Stocky would want to supplement some of these other comments and go into a little bit more detail on that, but that would conclude my testimony.
Can I talk now?
No.
I'm going to ask questions of Mr. Asbury first.
Okay.
So, Mr. Serpico, respectfully, we're have no further direct testimony for Mr. Arsberger at this time.
Okay. Board has questions and members of the public.
All right, does anyone from the board have any questions that they would like to ask?
I have a few. This is Mike Manzel.
Okay.
In regards to the balconies, you had indicated there'd be a glass sort of railing, or not a railing, but a protective barrier, if you will. Is that, I guess I have just a few concerns about that in terms of wind and structural integrity, and are there other applications where that has been used, this close to the waterfront?
Yeah, these are pretty commonly in use. I don't know about Asbury Park. I know Long Branch has a number of buildings that which utilize this type of guardrail. Guardrails themselves are governed by New Jersey's Uniform Construction Code with respect to what the applied loads that are required to be met. And these are designed to conform with those specific building code requirements.
Okay. Another question I had was, you did talk about a little bit about the roof lighting. I guess I just want to have some clarification. So it looks like there's a 3-foot, 6-inch parapet on the roof, right? So the lighting that we're talking about on the roof is actually mounted on the inside of that parapet, facing downward?
Yes, you'll see that if you look at the lighting plan, there are fixtures that are labeled D, which are like shown as a heavy black line.
Yes.
Those are recessed into the parapet walls, which face the roof deck itself. So there's no possibility of, and they're located, obviously below that 42-inch height. So there's no spillage onto the other properties, and those light sources are invisible. The only light sources which are not invisible are the required lights found at the exit doors, which have a code requirement that we have to provide the lighting at those locations. And I believe there's also some lighting that's above that so-called kitchen area. However, in that kitchenette area, because it's in between the two stairwells tend to block any light coming that would spill over onto the side yard properties, and it's set back sufficiently from both the front and rear property lines, so any glare from those lights would not be a problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike, just 1 second. I just like a clarification. Is someone going to be speaking about the lighting and the lighting plan and the lighting fixtures?
I guess that's what, and yeah, Rich.
Yeah, I'm addressing that.
Okay, all right, so then your testimony isn't finished because we haven't gone over the lighting plans you've provided or the fixtures that you've provided us, right?
To the best of my knowledge, both these revised lighting plans, as well as the fixture cuts, were provided to the board as part of.
That's correct, but are you going to be reviewing them with us?
Yes, we absolutely will.
Okay, so someone will be doing that.
Yes, we'll continue. You want us to do that now? Do you want to finish with the questions? We'll have Rich testify as to that.
Okay, if someone else is going to do it, I just want to make sure that
No,
we have.
it'll be Rich.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No problem. I'll stop the questioning on the lighting there then. The last thing
Can I just interrupt? I'm sorry, Mike. It's Donna.
Go ahead.
So are we going to get copies of this revised lighting plan to look at? Because I don't have them.
So there were some in our packet dated September 3rd.
Yeah, let me talk. So when we received the comment letter from Insight that I think had issues, needed further clarification with respect to the lighting in the foot candles, right. I called the architect up and said, here's the comment letter, revise them. They were sent to Irina, I believe, and Donna, I don't believe they have been sent to you yet, or Irina could address that. And you probably, even if you got them the day after we sent them in, wouldn't have had time to analyze them. So with respect to the new plans that I think Rich was talking about, we would suggest that during compliance that you and Insight, have final say over whether we're complying or addressing the issues the board has.
Well, I think the board would rather decide whether it complies and not leave it to either Jason or...
The board should have a presentation to us about the lighting plan. I'm guessing that the date on that was 9/3/20. That's the plan that we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so we have that. I have a whole lot of pictures of fixtures that were also included in our package. So I would assume, I prefer not to have it left to our engineers or our planners, that the board needs to witness this.
Madam Chair, that's an excellent thought, and we will address that after we're finished with the questions. We'll have Rich testify to that.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any other questions?
I had one more question, sorry. So when it comes to item 6, you were talking about windowsills. And I agree that with this modern design, windowsills are probably not necessary. However, I think my only question is, the 6 kind of larger windows that really make up the bulk of the front facade, it does seem like some kind of treatment is needed there, other than just a flush sort of window right against the siding. And I don't know if those are operable or not operable, those specifically.
The windows that you see, why don't we go to the elevations? I think you can see a little bit easier on the elevations. Okay, let's go to the front elevation. Okay. The window units, which I assume are going to be standard window units, they come with a brick, what's known as a brick mold around the perimeter of them. So you see a little bit wider outline around the windows, and what's shown, on a drawing like this, they'll be more noticeable, and they're not flush. They do have some relief to them. The windows themselves, like for example, if you look at the windows which are in the center of the building, you'll see there are 3 windows above 4 windows. Where you see a little triangular dashed line, that indicates that those windows are casement windows. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the 2 end windows are casements. All the other windows which don't have that designation are fixed windows. So between the 2 casement windows, you have a large picture window, and below it you have individual fixed units as well. The windows come as a manufacturer, they're known as mold units. So basically they come to the job site where all 7 of those individual units are combined into one.
Great, that clarified it. So the brick, the outer brick molding or whatever you were speaking of, you're saying that's not flush with the facade, that has some...
That's correct.
Depth to it. Okay. Okay. Then that answers my question and comment. Thanks.
All right. On one, can you just to go back to what you just mentioned? Out of those 7 pieces to that window, how many of those are open? How many of those are open?
2 of the 7. As I said, the 2 vertically oriented ones with the dashed lines. If you can see that, dashed lines. Those are casement windows. Where they come to a point on the outside, that's the hinge side, and where it widens out, that's the side which opens. You follow?
Yes. Yes.
Jim Henry, I've got a couple more questions about those windows. You answered one of them. On the windows on the north facade of the building, the 2 casements are the only ones that open. How about on the patios? It looks like there's 2 other windows on the patio that open, but how about the other on the east and west side? How about those windows? Are they fixed?
Okay, you're talking about the side elevations. So once again, right, this is the side elevation. So you'll see that once again.
No, I'm talking about the north elevation.
The north elevation.
That's the front elevation.
Front, okay. Okay, the front elevation, you'll see immediately to the right of the windows I was discussing, there's like a triple window that has 2 casements and a picture window in the middle. You see that?
Yeah.
And again, the 2 casements on either side of the picture window are operable casements. And then next to that.
And how about to the right of that?
To the right of that, that's a sliding glass door with an operable center panel.
Okay. You indicated that you have no sills, but that the windows are not flush. What is the setback from the facade, from the front facade?
Probably 1 inch and a fraction. What I said was that the wall construction we're using here is going to be, for the upper levels, wood frame. So with the fiber cement system that we're proposing to use, there's a rain screen of approximately 1/2 inch, which provides area for surface drainage behind the cladding, and also an area where the tracks for installation of the fiber cement panels can be located. And then the panels themselves vary from 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch in thickness. The window flanges are installed on the structural sheathing. So basically you have 1/2 inch airspace plus at most 1/2 inch of cladding material. So there's 2 inches from the frame. So the window itself extends out probably a couple inches as well. So that extends with the brick mold included. It's probably about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch beyond the face of the cladding itself.
So you're saying the windows are set back, the glass itself is set back about 2 inches from the front face of the facade?
Yeah, approximately, yeah.
In your design of these windows, the TRC indicated that the design guidelines are what they are, that they wanted single, double, or triple hung, they wanted casement windows, they wanted a setback, they wanted a windowsill. The TRC recommended that you do that. The guidelines recommended that you do that. The council recommended that you accept the TRC recommendations, and yet you didn't do any of those. Can I ask you why?
Our goal was to maximize the glass area. It became apparent in reviewing the guidelines that the type of building envisioned by the guidelines is a more traditional type of building where you would have individual double hung windows, maybe like, for example, a colonial style, they're in a primarily vertical orientation, space between them and so on. And that's appropriate for certain types of building styles. In this case, what we're proposing isn't really consistent with that. We're trying to provide a maximum glass surface area, wide, expansive picture windows, and to clutter the view from the interior of the buildings with, for example, single and triple hung windows of a narrow configuration was not appropriate for this particular site.
Okay, and the windows, the 4 panes below the picture window and the 2 casements on this facade, those are fixed, right?
Yes.
And what's the size of them?
Approximately, I would say approximately 2 feet in width and probably about 18 to 20 inches in height. That's just estimating. I don't know the exact size.
Okay, and how high are they off the floor?
The windows themselves?
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the top of the windows aligned with the guardrail. So the top is about 42 inches So the bottom of it would be probably about 1.5 feet from floor to sill.
How difficult would it be to put in sills on all these windows?
You know what, can we come back to that question in a little bit?
Sure.
When we take a break, we'll take a, when we ultimately do take a break, assuming we'll take a break, we'll talk about that and we'll come back to you, sir, if that's okay with the chair.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other window questions? Because I do.
Not window questions. I have questions.
Let me just do my window question and then we can move on to the others. When we're talking about on the rear elevation in the center, how are any of those, are those windows fixed or are they?
Yeah, once again, the top picture windows are fixed, but in this case, the awning windows are not fixed. They operate with a hinge on the top and they open on the bottom.
Okay, are there any other fixed windows that we should know about? Instead of me asking if it is or isn't.
Well, if you look at the 4th floor on that same elevation, you'll see onto the, under the trellis canopy, there are fixed windows above awning windows.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go down the building, likewise, you have fixed windows on top with awnings below on either side, and you also have sliders that are at the extreme corners on either side. On the side elevations, you'll see there's that triangular indication that is a casement window. So those are operable. However, the windows which are below and to the side of it are fixed. Likewise, the narrow sliver windows at the very end, those are both fixed in that case. And I believe those, yeah, you have a similar configuration as in the other case. We've got fixed above and awnings below on the terrace location, as well as sliders additionally. And then in the penthouse, as you can see, the end units of the windows are casements over awnings, and in the middle you have fixed over fixed. So in each space, it was our goal to provide adequate ventilation. So there are operable windows in every room within each of the units. But we wanted to have, in addition to that, more light, so we provided additional fixed glass as well.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions that they would like to ask that are not window related?
I have a window related. Sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Donna Miller. So you're saying that those are sliders on adjacent to the triples on the balcony?
Yes.
Okay. So sliders
on the side. There's access to that terrace in 2 locations. So why don't we go to the floor plan? I'll explain easier on the floor plan. Okay, now if you take a look at the floor plan, let's look at that front A unit. You see there's a bedroom that's in the front of the building. There's a 2-panel sliding glass door that provides direct access from that master bedroom suite to the terrace. There's also a triple sliding door which provides access from the dining area to that terrace as well. That's what you see on those elevations. So in that particular unit, there's 2 accesses from inside the unit to the terrace, one from the dining room, one from the bedroom.
Okay, so just for everyone's information.
And the balance of the windows would then be some combination of fixed casement and awnings, which I described up from the elevations.
Okay, so just for Jack and Mr. Kennedy, that will be an additional design exception to permit the sliders. That's also a design criteria.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have, any of the board members have any questions that they would like to ask?
I have a question.
Jim Henry again. On the sliders coming from the dining area onto the terrace, what's the width of those the doors?
I think we're showing them as 3-foot wide panels.
So your actual opening is going to be what?
9 feet.
It's going to be 3 foot, but when you start taking up space for your overlap on the sliders and stuff, what's that clear opening going to be?
Um, 32 inches, possibly.
It'd be what, 26, 28, 30?
No, probably about 32 inches.
That's going to be a mighty small door for a pretty big terrace.
I mean, it's a standard. All we're doing is proposing a standard triple slider. I'm not sure about the clear opening when it's open, but the nominal dimension I know is about 9 feet with approximately the nominal 3-foot panels. In an open position, it's probably slightly less than 36 inches. I would estimate probably around 32.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that Yvonne had a question.
Thank you. On page number 8, under 4.0, the wheel stops in the garage. I mean, I understand you said that you didn't think it was going to be necessary because the residents would know to stop. Wouldn't it be just a matter of safety to put in wheel stops in the garage?
Well, the only thing they would hit would be the wall. So there's no utilities, there's nothing that.
Councilwoman, and excuse me, Rich, we can definitely agree with that. That would not be.
You wouldn't want their cars to be hitting the wall.
Except the tandem spaces could not have wheel stops. Obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be able to use
Tandem spaces are approved.
Well,
Yes.
I'm just talking about between the wall and the first car coming into that space. Wouldn't it just be a matter of safety to do that?
We can do that, yes.
All right.
Absolutely. Good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think it's Eric.
Yeah, hi, this is Eric Galapo. So I just have maybe a couple of questions. If you wouldn't mind looking at drawing A2, your second, third, and fourth floor plans. Yeah. So am I correct that this is only a floor plan for the second floor, that the third and fourth are different than this because the balcony does not touch on the third and fourth floors in the back?
balcony doesn't touch.
Yes, see how in the rear of the building, yeah. See how your terrace, you could essentially move from unit B on the left to unit B on the right. So if I'm correct from the elevations, that's only the third floor.
Yes, the roof of the parking garage extends further on that level, and it would not extend, and obviously the terraces would not extend to that point on the third and fourth floor.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that this is not that. So there's a tip. This is a second floor plan, and then a typical third and fourth floor plan would not show that extended balcony. Is that correct?
Right. The difference would be that the terrace would be slightly smaller on the rear terrace of the third and fourth floor.
All right. I'm assuming you'll provide an additional submission for
Yes, absolutely.
typical third and fourth floors. Now, can you avail me of your average unit size for A and B? It's what, about, let's just call it 1,600 square feet?
As I mentioned in my opening,
Read it off the plan. Read it off the plan.
okay. Let's start with unit A. we're proposing 1,716 square feet. For unit B, we're proposing 1,502 square feet. For unit C, we're proposing 2,670 square feet. And for unit D, we're proposing 2,584 square feet.
Right. Now, when we add in the, for unit A, when we add in the terrace, it's about 2,000 square feet of lot coverage, right?
Right.
It's a little bit more than that. It's closer to 2,100. And it's similar for unit B. Now, the terrace size of unit C is almost as big as the entire enclosed area of unit A. Am I reading that? You're saying that it's nearly, I'm going to round up to 1,500 square feet of terrace in unit C.
In unit B?
In unit C.
Oh, yeah, those are the penthouse units.
Right, but it has a 1,500 square foot terrace.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this may seem a little strange, but I'd like to ask you about, you testified to your front setbacks. Could you tell me how far you sit back from the front property line?
Would we, if I could, our engineer would probably be better able to address that if you wouldn't mind waiting, if that's okay, sir?
Okay, I have a question. Well, I guess my question comes down to this: is these units, what was driving the relationship of the total size of the building covering the lot and the units themselves? Because it seems like very little is left over in the front, in the side, and in the rear. And I understand you have marketability to consider, but there are no articulations, no changes in size. The building goes more or less straight up in mass, and there's no modulation to that rhythm. And I'm curious how you arrived at these unit sizes and these setbacks in relationship to the total lot size.
Our engineer will be prepared to address that, and I don't want to defer your question. I mean, we can either jump him in now, but we'd have to have him sworn, or we can...
But I'll answer it from an architectural standpoint.
Thank you. I think it's actually an architectural question and not just an engineering question.
Yeah, I won't address the setback issue, but the size of the building is driven by two things. First thing is the provide adequate space for the required amount of parking. Okay, and the parking spaces, the drive aisles, and so on have to meet a certain size. We're also targeting a certain number of spaces, so that's one thing which would determine it. As far as the upper portions of the building goes, we've targeted certain square footages that we wanted to hit for marketability purposes. As far with respect to the question of vertically, this is a unarticulated mass. I don't agree with that because I believe the balconies themselves serve for that articulation. And even though the balconies extend out to the extreme edges of the building, if you take a look at the rendering and the elevations, they provide a lot of the articulation that you're suggesting should be included. So this is basically not just a box that goes up from parking garage up to the top floor, but the articulation is provided by the recesses created by the terraces themselves. So in addition to what was already testified to, the terraces providing indoor-outdoor living area, they also provide a lot of interest to the building by creating those recesses which are shadowed and provide depth and reduce the overall apparent mass.
So may I sort of just reiterate that what I heard is what's driving the building from your perspective is the amount of required parking and marketability.
Yes.
And I'm assuming when you say the amount of required parking, you mentioned two factors that came into play there. And I am sorry, I only caught the first one. You said it was the number of required spaces as required by the code, which I'm assuming in this case is the WRP governing your parking ratio. And then you said something about a number of parking spaces you are trying to target. But what number is that?
Well, my understanding is that the redevelopment zone requires a parking ratio of 1.5 spaces per unit. RSIS requirements are 2 spaces per unit. So that gives you an idea of the range of required parking that we were seeking to get. So if we're talking about 14 units at a 1.5 ratio, that's 21 minimum spaces. If we're talking about RSIS requirement, that's a minimum of 28 spaces. We ended up with 23, which is a logical compromise, particularly in light of the fact that one of those spaces is going to be restricted for handicap use. So effectively, if there is no need for a handicap space in this building, for example, we'd still have to reserve it, even though no resident may be qualified to utilize it. That would mean that we would need one extra one, which if we're going with the redevelopment plan would require 22 spaces. If we're going with the RSIs, it require more. However, we are seeking a waiver from RSIs. So I think the 22 plus 1 parking spaces provided is meets the intent of the ordinance as well as what we would like to see. From a marketing standpoint, there may be a desire to increase that, and Mr. Stocky will address the issue of the possibility of offering stackable spaces. However, even without the stackable spaces, the building conforms from the standpoint of the redevelopment plan. It's only a question of whether we want to provide additional spaces to add some marketability in the event that residents desire to have more.
And in the consideration of the general mass of your building, how can you speak to how you considered adjacent buildings or the larger context within the immediate area of your site in arriving at your overall massing and design?
Yeah, I think what we started out with, as I said, was driven primarily by the parking. The building width is actually narrower than what the regulation, I believe, is 5 yard setback or 5 foot setback, whereas we're providing 10 feet on each side. The rear setback had been a little bit larger, but during the meeting with TRC, we added some depth to that to provide a 5 foot extension for turnaround on the drive aisle of the parking area. So, and the building became narrower when we relocated the entrance to the building at grade level from the front. So the size of the building and the shape of the building have evolved during this process.
And Madam Chair, Bill Stocky has some comments to add to that answer.
Eric, immediately to the right of this building is a vacant lot, and the rear of the building faces, I believe, the motel site, and most of that is a parking lot. To the left of the building, on the corner of Kingsley and 7th Avenue, is I believe it's a 3-story apartment building. Looks like a house, but it has apartments in it. So on 2 sides of us, we pretty much had vacant lots.
And and that's the lots immediately adjoining your site. Let's just a couple feet beyond that, and you are not empty on one side. Is that correct?
Yes, the left side we're not empty. Yes.
So, what I heard, Mr. Your architect. I'm sorry, your name is
Arsberger.
Thank you. Escaped me. Testify is that largely the dimensions of the building and its relationship to the lot size were driven more by parking than consideration of the contextual environment.
that yielded the overall width. In fact, as I said, we narrowed it up slightly, but I didn't see anything in the context of the neighborhood which would indicate that this was out of scale or inconsistent with the pattern of development. I think many of these older lots, they've got 5-foot side yards that are being used. The newer ones, in many cases, I think go to the lot line in some cases, which would they be permitted to do, which we're not proposing.
No,
Our side yards are 10 feet each.
I would agree that the side yards are less of a problem. My concern is maybe more focused again on the overall bulk of the building, and it does extend beyond its closest neighbor significantly. It's not dimensioned on your plans, but we can ask the engineer for that.
Yeah, and also, sir, ultimately, our engineer and planner will address that. And I think one of the things our planner will say is that 8 stories is technically permitted under the redevelopment regulations. But if we could defer that for the planner, who is our engineer, but he can address that much more adequately than I can.
Donna, do we typically not receive a kind of zoning on the zoning board, we got that list that says these were the required setbacks and this is where we are. I know it wouldn't say complies or does not comply, but does it not break out so simply?
No, this is Donna Miller. So in the waterfront redevelopment area, there are no setbacks. There are very few development controls. Essentially we want buildings brought to the street line. There are no side yard setbacks. There's no building coverage per se. There are some things that apply globally to the waterfront redevelopment area that are covered under the CAFR permit. And some of that relates to parking. But basically, in our report, we have this section that says conformance with waterfront redevelopment plan.
Right.
I believe it's page 4-ish, 3 or 4. Yeah. And so those are the criteria: lot area, lot frontage, building height, parking.
Right.
And then it gets into the architectural design criteria.
I guess that's sort of where I see that's where the rub comes for me, is there's so little design control up front with the bulk that we have this bulky building.
There's also sort of a disconnect because we allow these subsequent redevelopers to come in with less than block-sized developments now. The minimum is 15,000 square feet. Yeah. And, they're talking about, in the development control plan, an 8-story building. And, for example, the garage door opening with, being maximum of 9 feet makes sense for a one-way in on one street frontage, mm-hmm. and then a one-way out on another street frontage. So we don't compromise, the whole block front with a driveway, right?
Yes.
So that's, there's a couple of technical inconsistencies between those two concepts, but it is what we have to live with.
And I guess, well, okay, I'm finished. Thank you.
Eric?
This is go ahead.
If I may.
Go ahead, Alexis.
Oh, okay.
No, Jack had something.
Yeah, I think I can help a bit here. Okay. I'm listening to members struggle with this. Keep in mind, the applicant has their own subjective reasons for requesting the project to be designed in this way, as they testify. However, your task is that a lot of these are generating design exceptions from the requirements of the plan. Your task is to analyze these exceptions and decide whether or not the applicant has met the criteria for the grant of the exceptions. So that's what you're looking at in terms of you might not like the massing of the building. Well, if there's an exception that's being requested in that area, you have to decide whether or not the applicant has sustained their burden of proof. So the criteria to apply, as Donna has pointed out in her report, are the number of design exceptions. And that's where you go for your analysis.
Yeah, no, I understand that. But when I look at that, I see things that are focused on architectural detail and not like the whole size and shape and site planning of the building.
Well, okay, I mean, you've got to look at what's there and what you can use. I mean, I'm counting a number of design exceptions that are being requested now. Some of them are balconies, they may be size, whatever. The architectural guidelines within the plan, I have no idea. You would have to decide.
No, understood.
Your hands aren't tied to the point, you're not, you still have the ability and the obligation to decide things based on the design exceptions requested pursuant to the plan.
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks, Alexis.
Oh, yes. So this is Alexis Taylor. I just have a couple of questions for the architect related to the left perspective rendering 2025-26. And I understand that some of the setback things are going to be left to the engineer, but I just want to, in looking at this rendering,
I'm sorry, which piece of evidence are you looking at? We'll bring it up.
It's dated 5/26/2020, and it's up on the screen, and it's the left perspective.
Thank you.
So the rendering doesn't appear to depict what is kind of the Asbury Park typology of having a green strip and then a sidewalk and then lawn and setback. Is the intention just that it's going to be street to sidewalk?
Can we have Walter Hopkin, our engineer and planner? I believe he'll be prepared to address that.
Okay. So all things really is this streetscape. And then this may be the same thing, but it does, so it appears that the building just to the west of it, is that supposed to depict the multi-family building that also has balconies on it?
I'm sorry. Yes, the one to the left of this rendering is the apartment building.
Okay.
But that's to the east, not to the west.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. I said left. Yes, to the east of this building.
And then what's to the west?
It is a vacant lot.
Oh, so you just put a building on a vacant lot?
Did you do that?
No, I think that's beyond this.
That might be the
lot. There's a lot in between this proposed building and the building that's shown on the wall.
Okay. Ask her if she got that.
Did you understand that, Ms. Taylor? There's the perception is that if you're looking to the right, there's between our building and the white building that you see, there's a vacant lot.
A vacant lot. Okay. So the white building is what is this structure? There's a vacant lot, but then there is a structure to the immediate, within an additional lot, and that's depicting that structure, the white building.
Yes.
Yes.
With a vacant lot in between.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then behind,
what is
behind the building is convention hall, but that's not really right. It's just like an image of it looks like convention hall, but it's not. That's not actually the structure behind the building, is it?
No. There is a building behind it. You're talking about that little sliver that's indicated there?
Yeah.
That's
what would be like to the south? That's the motel.
Yes.
What is the depth of the balconies?
Okay. I guess I would request additional rendering. I think the rendering it's hard to read in terms of the actual massing and setbacks of the building because it appears flush with the building to the east, and we know that comes further out. So if there were a way to request additional perspective, and they may already exist because this one says left perspective, so it makes me think there's a right perspective or something. Could you submit those to the board?
Yes, we could.
Right, there should be a right and there should be a back also.
Yeah.
So we can, and also to the front so we can see from the street to the front.
Yeah.
Okay.
From the street to where?
Right.
To the front.
To the front door. Like what's between the street and the front door? It's hard to tell.
It's on the site. It's on the site plan that was submitted with this application.
Okay, I don't see any landscaping that I can see.
Barbara Walt-Hopkin submitted a complete site plan, and I believe one of the pages was the landscaping plan. And if we get to him tonight, he can address that.
Okay. Does anybody else on the planning board have any other questions?
Yeah, I do, if I may quickly. On the typical units on the second, third, and fourth floor, what is the depth of the balcony from the front of the building to the glass at the rear of the balcony? And you can look at A2 drawing 1. Yeah. So just for clarity on your drawing 1, yeah, what is the distance from the front of the balcony? Yeah, there to the note to the other, yeah, to there, that the shorter dimension, correct?
He's got his scale out. Give us 2 seconds.
Are these, is this a full size set? Like, are these meant to be printed on 11 by 17 or are these?
No, that's not the scale.
Okay.
About 9.5 feet. To answer your question, depth of the terrace at that point.
Correct.
9.5 feet.
9.5 feet.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Eric?
No.
No? Anybody else on the planning board that has any questions?
I have a question. This is Jason, board engineer.
Go ahead.
Rich, you were talking before about the refuse. Excuse me. I just wanted to get an idea of how that functions. In other words, how do the residents get their refuse into that room, refuse and recycling? And then I understand it's private pickup. How is it picked up?
The residents would take their trash down the stair or elevator through the parking garage, and you see there's like a hatched area adjacent. They walk down that hatched area to an internal door and enter the refuse room and deposit the refuse in containers that are located within that space. That space is approximately, I think, about 9 feet wide and about 24 feet long. So we believe there's ample space in that. There's an offset for the doors to allow space to store those containers. At the time that the carter arrives, those wheeled carts are taken from the refuse room out to the driveway and then out to be picked up by the carter. The carter would stay in the street at the time it's being picked up, and basically the carts rolled out to be taken. Then the carts will be rolled back into the refuse room empty.
Are we anticipating like large cans, or what do you think?
No, I think the containers that, I don't know if Asbury Park offers them, but a lot of municipalities have those wheeled large plastic containers for both recycling as well as refuse. They're probably about maybe 42 inches high, and they're probably about like 30 inches by 30 inches in footprint, give or take. And they have wheels on them and a handle, and basically you can wheel them around.
And you're saying the carter's vehicle will be on the street?
Yes.
There's space for that?
There's space in front of the driveway. That's about 18 feet wide. You have to ask the engineer as far as the configuration of the on-street parking. That I'm not sure of.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the engineer will provide what the on-street, what the striping on the under, what we have today and what we're going to have going forward for on-street?
Yes.
Okay. There's another thing I'd like to just find out if somebody else is going to speak about it, or if you will, about the HVAC. Is that the HVAC is on the east and the west side of the building? Are you the one to speak to about that, or do we go to the engineer? Because I know you mentioned it.
Yeah. I think that will be our architect. Let me just pull it up here.
Yeah. Each unit has its own independent HVAC system. And as I testified to before, a number of those, they're basically residential condensing units, would be located on the roof. However, and what you see there is a typical fixture cut of what we would expect to use. Pretty much like what you expect for a small single family house. So that each unit would have its own unit like this. The units which are located at the lowest levels, we wanted to avoid a long run to the condensing units from the units themselves. So we've located 8 of those, the 8 lowest units in the building, to be at grade in the side yards. So you actually have 4, as you can see, 4 on each side. That would be screened from view from the street by the wing walls that extend out from the corners of the building, and also be screened from the neighboring properties by the proposed fences along the property.
All right.
The noise from that would be about what you would expect for, as I said, a single family house's condensing unit.
Right, but at this point that this kind of equipment is, shall be permitted in rear yards only, not side yards.
Yes.
So that's why I was wondering why we would put it on the side yard if they're required, if they're permitted only on rear yards.
Once again, because of the length of run that it would take to get from the front units to the rear of the building, we located the 2 that are in the front for each side are located in the side yards. If you pan up, you'll see in the rear, they're located off the side as well for the 2 rear units.
No, I understand what it says, but I just don't understand why it's not on the roof like the rest.
Because we were trying to avoid a long run from the lower level up to the rooftop to avoid any issues with respect to the length of those lines. At grade, you're 5 stories below where the topmost units are located, and the desire on the part of the developer was to avoid issues associated with locating them so remotely, and the extent of the line which would be required to connect the air handling unit within the unit to the condensing unit that serves it. It's really a practical consideration.
No, I understand, but my concern is whatever is going to be in that open lot that is to the right, that could be under someone's window when that lot gets built upon. So that's why we always said to put them in the back of it, but that's not really,
Keep in mind our setback from our wall line where those are located on each side is about 10 feet. And I think we're proposing, what, a 5-foot fence? So it's very similar, 6-foot fence. It's very similar to what you'd expect to see in a single family lot. Or be aware of in a single family lot.
Does anybody else on the planning board have any questions? Do our professionals have any questions?
Yes.
Go for it. Or wait just a second. I'm sorry, Donna. I just want to take a poll from the planning board members if they would like a 5-minute break, or we plow on.
I would like a break. Jim Henry.
Okay, let's go with a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Can we have a motion to for a 5-minute break, please?
Motion to adjourn 5 minutes.
Yes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-minute break. Okay, welcome back, everyone.
You have a motion to resume?
So moved, Mike Mantle.
We got to call a roll.
Thank you, Mike. Second?
I'll second.
Alexis, second. Oh,
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And I will take the roll now. Mayor John Moore,
Here.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton,
Here.
Michael Manzella,
Here.
Alexis Taylor,
Here.
Jennifer Souter,
Here.
Jim Henry,
Here.
Eric Galapo,
Here.
and Barbara Krisak.
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. I just have a quick question about who's
Room strictly the internal mechanicals, or will that also be meters?
The electric room would serve electric panels.
The meters go.
And the meters,
So the meters will be inside.
the electric meters would go outside on the wall, outside the electric room. The panels would be inside. So the electric meters would be on the side wall next to it, adjacent to the electric room.
Okay, and then what about natural gas metering? Do you have any idea about where they're going to be banked on the building?
What's going to be done?
The gas.
The gas meters
Will be on the side, same
will
side.
also be on the sidewalls.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The gas meters will also be located on the sidewalls.
Sidewall. On just one side or both sides, or do we know?
We'll let the engineer address that because that's dependent on where the gas line is coming from.
Okay. I know on the rendering, I think on one of the elevations, also there's an image of the 202 for the address. Is that the extent of the signage for the building?
Yeah.
210, whatever.
Excuse me, is that the only sign?
Yes.
It's a sign will comply. Signs will comply.
Yes.
Yes, but any signs that we have will comply with the redevelopment regulations.
Well, there really aren't any. That's why I'm asking, what signs are there?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a known sign.
Street number.
Street number.
Just the street number, not a building name or?
No building name.
Okay. Okay, and then on the refuse room, and here we go. So that's the right elevation. How high above the ground is the bottom of the windows? Or like, are the refuse storage containers going to be visible through those windows?
Yeah, we're going to use frosted glass there, just like we're using frosted glass in the garage door. We'll use frosted glass on the windows into the refuse room. So view is obscured.
Okay, that might be another exception. I just need to verify that, but I know glass is generally not preferred in the design guidelines. I'm not sure if it's going to apply in this application or if that's strictly on storefronts, but okay, but both the garage and the refuse rooms will have frosted glass.
Yes. Right.
All right, so storage. So there's no storage. There's the bike room, signs, the meters, the gas meters. We'll talk with Walt. And the glass. Okay, and you said H. I think, oh, yeah, for the architect, I think that is it for now.
Quick follow-up question, Jason here. Rick, I'm assuming that refuse room will be cooled, climate controlled, whatever it takes?
Yes. It'll be ventilated, mechanically ventilated.
Thank you. To the roof?
I would assume to a sidewall.
But, so who could tell us? Would that be the engineer to tell us?
No, we'll decide that when we work on our construction documentation. Likewise, the parking garage.
You're going to have to tell the board what you're doing with that issue because coming out of a sidewall could affect your neighbors. The board's going to have to make a decision whether or not they want it to come through a sidewall or through the roof.
Can't go through the roof.
Okay, well then you might have to go an alternate route. You've got the board is going to be the one to determine which way.
It'll either go out a sidewall to the side yard, or it'll go out a sidewall adjacent to the garage door. It will not go to the roof.
The board's got a decision to make on that issue.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, the board or professionals? For the
I don't have
engineer?
questions, but I do
All right.
have some thoughts.
Would you like to voice your thoughts before we go to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
There were a number of points made that there are going to be amendments submitted. Rear elevations, more clarification on side elevations, some other items. I think before we excuse the witness, the board should go over what the board wants to see, so we give them a detailed list of what we're looking for the next time around, so there's no guesswork.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you can go to the public.
And Madam Chair, if I may, I think we are going to have the architect testify about the lighting fixtures and describe that. I can do that after, or maybe if you want me to do that now before we open to the public, whatever your.
Well, if you do it now, then we'd have to go back to the planning board members and the professionals.
Thank you.
Again. Do you want, Jack, do you think that we should mention the items that we're interested in before we go to the public?
Yeah, and I also think from a procedural perspective, if there's additional direct testimony from the engineer, from the architect, excuse me, you should get it now so that you're not going to get public questions, because once the architect speaks about the lighting, he's going to be subject to cross-examination by the public, and I would expect that the most efficient way is have it all done at one time.
So we should do the lighting now?
Yep. But you should also give him the list when he's concluded of what you're expecting to see in the future, at another meeting for consideration.
Okay. All right. So let's talk lighting.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. There were a number of questions brought up about the revised lighting plans and the lighting fixtures, what they're going to look like. Can you bring them up on the board and maybe describe them to the board so we can give the board and the board members can have a comfortable feeling about what is being proposed?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Kennedy, let's just put on the record that the updated lighting plans will be marked as Exhibit A4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And those plans are from 9/5/20, is that correct, or 9/3/20?
9/3/20.
Okay.
Okay, what you see on the screen right now is sheet E1, which is part of that, those updated plans which you now have. That reflects the ground floor lighting level plans, exterior lighting specifically, although the interior garage lighting is also indicated. However, the relevant lighting, for as far as site lighting goes, are provided by lights at the bike storage room, at the stair exit, at the exit from the parking garage to the exterior by the bike rack, at the main entry doors, and in the soffit in front of the garage doors. And the numbers that you see on the plan are expressions in foot candles at that particular location. So as you can see from this plan, it also indicates where the property line is. And the highest foot candle levels that I see on this plan outside the property line is about 0.5 foot candles at the front corner of the building, as well as near where the exit stair exits. That's the highest level, is 0.5 foot candles. As I said in my previous testimony, keep in mind that ambient moonlight lighting is approximately 2 foot candles. So 5.5 foot candles at the immediate property line is 1/4 what you expect on a moonlit night, and that is at the property line. So if a building is either located there or constructed at a later date, you can see it drops because foot candle levels are expressed in distance. It's basically the source illumination in lumens divided by the distance squared. So the amount of foot candles drops off significantly the further you get from the light source. And that's basically what this particular plan indicates. The interior, of course, will meet all the New Jersey Uniform Construction Code requirements. On the next page, both the second, third, fourth, and penthouse plans all show the terrace lighting. Terrace lighting is provided primarily by soffit lighting. It's indicated as C2 on the plans, and you'll see the foot candle levels at the terrace floor ranges in the immediate location of those light sources at 8.6, and as you can see at the front elevation, it decreases to 0 once you're beyond the terrace itself, which indicates to me that this is these are recessed lighting is proposed, so there's very little spillage beyond that. The same can also be said for the penthouse plan, which has strip lighting at a low level, and as you can see along the perimeter of the terraces, those lighting levels get reduced to a maximum of 0.4 at the edge of the terrace. So there's little spillage in any of those floors. And then finally, the roof plan, the lighting is provided primarily by fixtures which are located within the parapets, the solid parapets that contain the area of the recreation area. They're also supplemented by single lights at the entry doors, which are required by code, as well as some downlighting associated with the kitchenette area. But as I said, because of its location between the stairwell and the elevator locations, any light from that is screened from reaching any of the adjacent properties. So as you can see, there's virtually no spillage from the top floor as well. So in each of these cases, there's very little impact, if any, on the neighboring property. The actual fixtures we're using were also provided and should be in the package that you have. We'll call up just to give you an example. Okay. The designations on each of the respective plans call out those light fixtures and where they're located. Yeah. So just want to pick up any of them. Nope. Wrong page. Yeah, go to any of them, Insight or Elite or any of them. That one is that's the parapet lighting as an example. You can see the light source goes downward to the walking surface of the deck, the rooftop deck area, and there's no lighting that would spill over into the adjacent properties. And we provided fixture cuts of each of the respective light fixtures, which you can locate on those plans. So for example, here's another one. This is the recessed lighting, which would be used in the soffits of the terraces. As you can see, because it's recessed, you have very little spillage as well. Plus the level of light is only 1100 lumens. Yeah, I think that's it.
We also had the LED series, the OV1R. Where are they going to be?
This one? In the garage. Those are in the garage, so those won't be visible from the exterior. Those are in the garage ceiling. They're surface mounted.
Rich, it's Jason Fitchter. I just two easy ones here. On sheet E1 in the backyard, the readings were shut off. I'm assuming that's because they're all 0 back there.
Yes, they're all zero. I'm not proposing any lights on that rear wall.
And then along the side yards, do those on the ground, do those readings account for any spillage that comes from the balconies?
No, because as I said, this is expressed in foot candles. Foot candles are lumens divided by the distance squared. By the time they reach the surface of the ground, the light is so diffuse it wouldn't register as an increase in foot candles.
Thanks.
Do you see that on E2, like what Jason was just mentioning, that on the decks it looks like it went up to 2.1, and so there's no spillage onto the back wall? You see, yeah, keep going. No, you were there. You were okay. No, it's on E2.
On E2, what was the question?
On E2, if you look at the back balconies.
Yes.
All right. Okay, to your look at the second, third, and fourth floor.
Yes.
It says 2.1.
That's a lot. I understand. It's on the left.
Yeah, right there. If you look above that, that goes into where the motel is. So there's no spillage over there at 2.1?
No. If you scroll down a little bit, you see the property line?
Yes.
See the distance to the property line?
Yes.
You would express that in foot candles at that distance. As I said, the formula is lumens over the distance squared. So the further you go from the light source, and the only light source here is the light source that's right outside the door that goes from the bedroom to the terrace, and the one which goes from the dining room to the terrace. They are so far from the property line that you would not expect to get any contributive foot candle levels coming from those two light fixtures.
Right. It's just hard to see how far that property line is. That's all.
Excuse me, this is Donna Miller. But those balcony railings are the clear glass, right?
Yes.
So there will be light that is cast onto the ground. Yeah, it may not be at the property line, but there will be light spillage onto the ground on the rear of the property, correct?
Well, it's a similar situation. If you take a look at the garage level plan, you'll see how rapidly the foot candle level.
It's whether there is.
The foot candle levels drop off. For example, you take a look at the side door by the stairs. You see directly under that light, you're at 1.6 foot candles. By the time you get to the property line 5 feet away, you're already down to 0.5 foot candles. So you have a similar situation out the back, and at the edge of the balconies, we're talking about, we're talking about 0 to 2 foot candles. By the time you get 15 feet, 20 feet away from that, the foot candle level is 0. So if we were to take the back, it would be the same as the sides. But since there's no light source there, we didn't take it in that location. We only took it off the sides. But logically, based on the formula for determining foot candle levels, you wouldn't expect to find any levels, significant levels back there. As I said, the comparison is moonlight at 2 foot candles. If we're talking about,
while I understand, I'm sorry, while I understand what you're saying, I also understand what our planner is saying is that it looks like it's 0. Based on this, it looks like 0.
It could
So
very
that's,
well.
I think that was the point.
All I can say is this plan was based on the way in which you calculate foot candle levels. Foot candles, as I understand it, is the only quantifiable measure that's found in your ordinance. So therefore, this demonstrates that we're in compliance because we're nowhere near spillage of more than 2 foot candles.
Does that conclude your testimony on lighting?
Yes.
Okay. So does anyone on the board have any questions that they would like to ask?
Jim Henry, I have a couple of questions. On staying on this ground floor plan, to the west of the building, you run out a series of numbers I can't read them on the plan that you submitted, but on the screen here. What are the dimensions? How far out from the building and how far out from the property line are each one of these readings taken?
It's a This is the property line. Are you talking about the last column on the extreme right? Is that what you're talking about? The numbers.
I'm sorry.
Question.
I can't hear you.
Are the numbers which are along the extreme right column?
Yes.
Are those the numbers that you're referring to? Yes.
Yes. And now the next column also is 0. Now the column changes. How far out is that distance? What's the distance?
Okay. The distance from the face of the wall to the property line is 10 feet. So the first column of numbers beyond the property line, which, I mean, I don't know, is about 3 feet from the property line, ranges from 0 to 0.5, depending on where you are. The next next column over is approximately 9 feet from the property line, and that ranges from 0 to 0.2 at the highest. Then when you get to the third column of numbers, which is roughly about 13 feet from the property line, that's 0 to 0.1. And then when you get to the fourth column, which is approximately 18 feet from the property line, they all appear to be 0. And of course, beyond that, there's 0 as well. So I guess the conclusion you can draw from this is that the highest light level in foot candles closest to the property line is about 0.5 foot candles, which is 1/4 of what you expect from ambient light at night.
And on the east side of the building, those dimensions roughly the same?
Yes, well, actually, they're slightly lower because there's less light sources on that side of the building. The only light source on that side of the building is at the doors to the bike storage room. So in that immediate area, the highest is 0.4. For most of that side property line, you're at 0.
Okay, then by the bike rack area, how far out from the property line is that 0.4 foot candles?
The 0.4 foot candles is about 3 feet from the property line.
I'm sorry, say it again.
It's approximately 3 feet from the property line, and it's centered approximately in the center of those double doors.
Okay, and then the next, the 0.1 is how far out?
0.1 is, probably about 8 feet from the property line.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Henry?
One other thing I want to add. I did mention motion detectors on the garage door. The bike storage area and these other outdoor lights will have to be on motion detectors as well. So they're not going to be on constantly, just going to be when someone approaches it from the outside. So the bike storage, the exit doors will all have be set on motion detectors.
But the lobby doors are not on motion sensors, right?
No.
Okay.
Will there be one at the garage door? And just let me know if you're not the right person to ask about this. On the garage door, will there be some sort of a light or something that lets people know that that the door has opened? That's what they're walking on the sidewalk. A warning light, like we have on other buildings.
We hadn't discussed that, but something we would consider.
Would that be for the engineer, or would that be for you?
That would be the engineer.
Okay. Anybody else have any other lighting questions from the board? No? How about from our professionals?
I do.
Go for it.
Thank you. This is Donna. So you said the exterior lights on the bike storage and a stair tower, I guess. Let me see. Those are the B2 fixture, right? The wall pack?
Yes.
Okay. And they'll have a sensor. What about over by the utilities, the electric room and the sprinkler room? No lighting on those doors?
No, there'll be no lighting on those doors. Just what be used by the residents.
All right, I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. There are no more questions from the professionals or from the planning board. We can open up the questions to the public or anything that the architect has testified to.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone again that if you would like to ask a question, you must click the raise hand button on your computer or dial *9 on your telephone. And I only show one hand raised. Mr. Magnoli, go ahead and ask your question for the architect.
Ernest Magnoli, 400 Deal Lake Drive, apartment 5D, Asbury Park, New Jersey. I live approximately two or three blocks from this project. I hope you don't mind I call you Mr. Architect, but if that's okay, I'll use it. Okay, sir.
Sure.
Okay, so far, in terms of footprint of this building, I haven't heard anything, but I'm going to ask. But you did say that the building is 60 feet tall, correct?
Yes.
Does that, now, that's from the ground? I mean, obviously, this is built on a slab, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so from the ground level, the slab level, to the top of the structure, the top of the roof line of the fourth floor, does 60 feet include, I guess you have to have an elevator tower up there, you have to have penthouse accommodations, I guess a fence around the roof for the penthouse? Does that include all that, or just to the top of the fourth floor?
No, it's measured by, that's your building height measurement. You exclude items such as rooftop mechanicals, penthouses, elevator overruns, and parapets.
So it excludes that. So basically, from the ground floor, which is one is the parking level, and then there's 4 living levels, and the 60 feet from the ground up is the top of the fourth floor unit. In other words, the ceiling level, so to speak. Everything above that, you're saying, is not in that 60 feet. The elevator shaft, the elevator room, and all that up on the roof, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, good. Can I ask you the footprint of the building? In other words, the building, when you stand in front of it in the street, how wide is this building? And it's one building, correct? It's one building,
Yes.
Mr. Architect? Okay.
Yes, the building is 80 feet wide. The lot is 100 feet. So there's a 10-foot setback in each side yard. The depth of the building is 117 feet at its deepest point.
Okay, it's 170 feet from the building front. 107? Okay, I'm sorry, sir. Okay, I'm sorry.
117 feet in depth, 80 feet in width.
Okay, and the 80 feet in width on a 100-foot width lot, and 117 feet on how deep is the lot?
Engineer. The engineer will answer that question.
I don't think that's gonna. I mean, come on, an engineer doesn't know how. I can't. Okay, you know, we're dumping everything on this engineer, this poor guy, but we don't know how many feet the lot is. I mean, you know that it's 100.
The lot is. I just told you 10-foot side setbacks. I'm not sure about the front and the rear. The engineer can cover that in his testimony.
But you designed the building, correct?
I don't recall.
No argument. Let's not argue with the witness. Stop.
No, I'm not arguing.
Both stop. Both of you stop. The question, he can't answer the question. He told you he can't. So you're going to have to accept that, and you're going to have to ask somebody else the question.
Okay. Okay. All right. So that's that. You have any idea on the hardware on the roof? Like, I guess, are you saying is that a common, the way you design this building as an architect, is the roof deck and penthousing just for the penthouse units, or it's common for all the units?
Common for all the units.
Okay, so if I'm on the second floor living in a 2-bedroom unit and I want to go up on the roof, I guess I either take the elevator up or I walk up the stairs, but it's for me too, right? It's a shared, I guess you want to call that a shared rooftop, correct?
Yes.
For all 14 units.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I get that. In your design, have you designed anything on the roof relative to children? Meaning, if you're up there 60, 70 feet in the air and you have a rooftop, what if, and I guess that would include handicap, but let's include handicap and children. Is there any accommodation or built into your architectural planning? Let's just stick with the rooftop relative to children and handicap. In other words, how do they get up there? Or did you plan that? Once they're up there, are they safe? Is that all planned, or?
As you described, access to that area would be either by the elevator or by the stairs. The elevator provides handicap accessibility. The rooftop deck is surrounded by a 42-inch guardrail. The floor next below, the terrace of the floor next below is approximately 10.5 feet below that.
All right, so it's around the perimeter of the roof, which is let's call it the rooftop deck, is a 42-inch guardrail.
Yes.
And did you say that was made out of metal and glass, or just metal, or?
No, the unit guardrails are glass. The top floor is a solid parapet guardrail.
Okay, and that would accommodate, is that, as an architect, do you have to take into effect if young children are up there? Is this meets all those standards from an architectural point of view?
Yes.
Okay, so whatever around the perimeter of that building up top, you're saying if 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds go up there, they can't scoot under the bottom, they probably can't climb over the top.
It's a 42
it meets.
It's a 42-inch solid wall.
Okay. Well,
Mr. Mangoli, this is Kevin, the attorney. If I might say, Rich, is it safe to say that if the application is approved, clearly it will comply with prevailing building code and construction code requirements?
Yes, it'll be in full compliance with New Jersey's Uniform Construction Code.
Okay, fine. For children and handicap.
For everyone.
For everyone. Thank you. Okay. Now, you mentioned early on when you were doing like a market study as an architect, you interviewed some, I don't know what you did, some marketing people or some potential buyers, and you said you got an overwhelming positive response.
Mr. Magnolia.
Where was that? Yes.
I'm sorry. I don't want to. Sorry for interrupting you. That was not the testimony of the architect. That was the testimony of Bill Stocky earlier.
Oh, and who was he? The engineer?
Well, the project manager, remember?
Oh, the project manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not what he said, but that was not the testimony of the architect.
Okay. All right. I withdraw that question. Mr. Architect, when you designed these units, and I guess you have a target in mind, your manager, the developer who you work for as an architect, you're designing the units. Are they designed for, let's say, a family with 2 different sex children? I mean, they're all 2-bedroom, correct?
They're all 2-bedroom, correct.
Okay, so I think as an architect, that would mean that
you're not asking a question. You're
okay.
testing.
As an architect, how many? I don't know what you want. I don't know what to say. Politically correct. How many parents can move in there with how many kids in all the 2 bedrooms, regardless if it's a big 2-bedroom each one or the smaller, but they're all 2 bedrooms.
He can't answer that question.
He can't answer that question. Okay.
No.
Okay. I'll withdraw it.
He wouldn't know. He wouldn't know.
He wouldn't know.
No.
Okay. Who would know?
Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. If you're asking what's the occupancy limit, he might know that, but he can't tell you about parents, how many sets of parents.
No.
If
Mr.
you want to know the
Serpent,
occupancy limit and he knows the answer, he can give it to you. If he doesn't,
okay. Okay. Then I'm going to ask it. Is the second bedroom of these 14 units designed to accommodate children?
I can't answer that.
Okay. Okay. That's an answer. Can't answer it as an answer. So you testified that the larger units are 2,500 square feet, correct? Or up to 2,700 square feet?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what the layman's term or the architect's term is, but for a two-bedroom, 2,700 feet is rather spacious, I guess.
you're offering an opinion. Now that's
Okay,
that's
okay.
the question.
Are they large two-bedroom units in your opinion? I mean, are the rooms?
No, let him
large?
answer your question. You asked the question. Let him answer.
Are they large? Yeah, they're large.
Yeah.
I mean, if the standard of reference is a normal rental apartment that's two bedrooms, that they usually, typical rental apartment, two bedrooms is around 1,200 square feet. But these are not intended for that purpose. These are intended to be luxury apartments for that, possibly move down buyers, possibly young professionals, and so on. That is the target market, and that question probably should be.
Please don't talk about market.
I don't know about market is right. All I can tell you is
That's not architectural. That's business.
right. Who we were given who we were to design for.
Thank you.
So on the 2,700 square foot unit, can you just give me an idea of the two bedrooms, the length and width?
Yeah, that would be the front unit, unit C, and the bedroom is 14. One bedroom is 14 by 20, and the other bedroom is 17 by 14.
And those would be the largest two bedrooms.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
They would be the largest two bedrooms?
That's right. That's unit C, which is the penthouse facing front. That's 2,670 square feet, which is what you were referring to. Those bedroom sizes I just gave you for that unit.
Correct. So you answered by saying they are the largest units by square foot, also have the largest bedrooms.
Yes.
Okay. And I think you testified the largest units have two baths and a half bath.
Yes.
Okay. At what square footage do you lose the half bath? And do all the units have at least two full baths, or do you go down to one full and a half bath in the smallest unit? I wasn't clear on that.
The minimum for even the smallest unit is two baths.
Two full baths. Two
full baths for the smallest unit. The penthouses have 2.5 baths.
Only the penthouses have the half-ish additional.
That's correct.
Okay, and right. I was going to ask a silly question. I can't ask. I was going to say the penthouses are on the top floor, but I don't want to sound that I corrected. I think they are. Let's see. Penthouse, two bedrooms. You answered about the children. I'm just looking at my notes. I'm sorry, because I listened for 3 hours and I just wrote down so much. I'm trying to figure out what to. All about the setbacks is going to be for the engineer, correct, Mr. Architect?
Yes.
Okay. Anything about the setbacks and okay. So now to the parking garage, if you will. You testified there's going to be 8 tandems.
Well, 8 spaces consisting of 4 tandems. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's 4 tandem parking and 1 handicap. That's 4, 8, 9. And then you're saying you have a total of 23 or 2?
23.
23. So after the tandems, the 4 tandems, and the one handicap, how many, I don't know what you have. What are they? 15-foot parking spaces? 15 by 8 or something, or 12 by 9?
Minimum
What?
parking space size is 18 feet long by 9 feet wide. Minimum. Some are wider.
Some are wider. Okay. All right. But that's basically the layout. I misunderstood. So there's 4 tandems for 8 spaces, full-size cars, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then there's one handicap, and then the rest are single spaces.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Are you, in terms of going to be looking for an exception or a variance? I don't know what you may need, but for stacking for those electric lifts, or is that just something that if it comes about in the future, if it's needed, you'll come back and apply then? Or is it something that's been entertained up front now? Because I heard you mention about stackables, and now we're talking equipment, hydraulics.
I'll let the owner discuss the possibility of stacked parking.
And we'll have the engineer address that as well, Mr. Serpico.
So the engineer will talk about the stacking
Yes.
and entertain questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. So still back to the ground level. So there's going to be, conceivably, without stackables, there's going to be, I keep forgetting, 22 cars in there? 23. 23. And that includes the handicap. And if no one, these are condos, right?
Yes.
So if no one buys the condo that requires handicap, are you allowed to give that back as a regular parking space?
No.
It has to remain as a handicap?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now we're talking a building that's, I don't know, do you know the dimensions of that parking garage? Is it what? About 60 by, it's about 80 by 117? The size of the building, almost?
Yeah, slightly less, about, slightly less than 117.
Okay. So now the question is, do you as an architect, and I guess when you're scoping this all out and planning it as an architect, designing it, are you accommodating like logistics? Like, I live right near that lot, so I think there's one curb cut. Are you going to stick with one curb cut?
That's a question for the engineer.
Okay. Okay. But once you're in the garage, have there been any studies like, I don't know, what happens at 8 o'clock in the morning when everybody wants to go to work at the same time?
The parking,
Logistically?
the parking situation meets the ordinance. There's enough spaces there according to the ordinance, and they meet the ordinance.
Okay, but I just asked if there was a logistics study on people maneuvering in there. And it's just a yes or no question. I know it meets the ordinance, but the ordinance doesn't always accommodate practicality. And sometimes ordinances are modified because
All right,
when you
answer
set
the
something...
question, please. Answer the question.
Thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it. Any study on that?
I did not do a study.
Okay, and you're the architect, so that answers that. About the venting of the compactor room. Is there a compactor or just holding of the garbage?
No, just holding.
Okay, so that's going to be in a I guess almost an air secluded room, correct?
Yes.
And so far, are you going to be answering questions about where that vent and smell is going to go, or do I save that for the engineer?
No, that would be me.
That would be you. Okay. So you did say clearly that it can't go to the roof, obviously, because it wouldn't be a nice thing to do to the penthouse people. So now you gave two options: out the sidewall or out by the front door. And both places are very, very close to that building on the corner, on the side, on the easterly side. And then if you go to the front, and you're almost at the curb line.
You got to get to the question, Ernest.
Okay. So, okay. All right. So if you go with the side exit, then is it going to be at ground level?
I'm sorry, there's going to be a what?
At the vent.
Another, you're going to vent out the side. Where are you going through? The foundation? Where are you going with it out the side? Is it going to be 3 feet through the building and it's going to have like a stack on it? Or is it just like a vent where that garbage air is going to be right out the side?
It'll be a grill with a fan.
With a fan?
Yes.
Okay, so the fan is going to draw the air out of the secluded garbage room, and it's going to suck it out without any kind of filtration or any deodorization.
The planning board may not accept that. The board may not accept that.
Okay, so
The
then
board's
it's
going to
premature
have
to ask.
the board's going to have some say in this. It's not just we take it. The board's going to have some say in that matter. I said that
Am I
during the
going to be around to comment on at that time?
I assume you're going to be around. I don't know if you have any plans of leaving or going somewhere.
Well, I am moving out of state, but that's
I can just.
I can only tell you when there's public comment, you'll have an opportunity to comment. Yeah.
And public comment will come at the end of all the experts, at the end of
the
everything.
case, just like it does in all the cases.
Right, and before the final vote, so to speak, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's for the public. Okay, so that's the side situation. It'll be a contained room. The garbage will be in there. Whatever smell there is going to be sucked out by a fan through a pipe and go out the side. Coming out the front.
We
how are
don't
you gonna
know
handle
that yet because the planning, I'm going to say it again, the
you don't
planning
have to
board
repeat it.
may not accept that option.
Okay. And if it goes out the front, what's your proposal?
Mr. McNally.
We're going way beyond. You're not hearing what I'm saying. The board may not accept that.
All right, let me ask you a question. You guys sound like you're tired. Can I pick up my questions at the next meeting? Because you really sound tired. And I'm not
I
tired.
don't need you to offer an opinion whether I'm tired or not. Ask
Well,
your
you sound tired. You sound tired.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Mr.
Mute him.
McNally, I've muted Mr. McNally. I don't show any other hands raised at this point.
Okay, perhaps this is the time that we put together to give you some input on what we're looking for going forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have some items now. I'd like to have our board members also chime in as to what they're interested in if I have not captured it. I know that we were interested in some additional renderings of the west, south, and renderings of what the landscape is going to look like, so the streetscape essentially, so that we can see that, and some ideas of the parking, which is really part of the streetscape, the parking outside the building. We'd like to see on those depictions where the refuse is going to actually go on the sidewalk, because that wasn't very clear. And I don't think that I had anything else on my list. I don't know if anybody else does from the planning board.
I would only encourage the applicant to explore opportunities for modulating the mass, especially as it relates to the design exception number 7 on page 7 of 13, where it says balcony elements of balconies are elements of the vernacular, but they must be used sparingly. I don't think sparingly is an adjective that could be applied to the current application of the balconies on this project. I would just encourage you to explore it.
Thank you.
I think that there was also, there was a discussion of additional exceptions. I think that that was for our planner, that there are some additional potential exceptions with potentially frosted glass and sliders. I don't know if anybody else was interested in anything else. Planning board members?
Jim Henry again. They're talking about the recycling and the refuse room ventilation. They're going to get more details on that. Curb cuts.
Yes.
The testimony concerning the signage was not too clear. I don't know whether the architect is going to address that any further, or the planner for the applicant. The issue of window sills was going to be addressed at a later date. The fencing and the gates were going to be addressed by the engineer. The loading spaces is to be addressed by the engineer. I think that is it for me, I think.
Anybody else?
Wheel stops in the garage.
Ah, yes, the wheel stops, you're right.
So noted, thank you.
Anything else from the planning board members or the professionals? Okay, then I'm going to need a motion to move this application to, what was the date, Arena?
So the next available hearing date we have is December 7th. We'd like to give the next application the full date.
Yes. So December 7th with no further notice. Can I get a motion?
Jim Henry, so moved.
And I'll second.
Alexis, second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Jim Henry and a second by, I'll go with Eric because he said it first.
Okay, Eric it is.
All in favor?
Chicken dinner.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Application carried to December 7th, 2020 without further notice.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, sorry, Madam Chairman, and Mr. Attorney, on behalf of my client, I consent to extend the time frame within which the board has to act, and I thank you for the courtesies and the time you have given us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Jim Henry, so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Jim Henry and a second by Barbara Krisak. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 And meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
And
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Sleep well.